Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Risk Matrix
The
with
Risk Matrix. Roll Tide.
with Risk Matrix Roll Tide with James Junkin, president of the Veriforce Strategic Advisory Board,
Share.
and myself, Dr. Martin. And as you can see, today we have our first guest on the show, Yara Carrillo. Welcome, Yara.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited about this new project and feel honored to be here.
Yar, we're
Excellent.
extremely excited to have you here on this podcast. You're a valuable member of Veriforce's Strategic Advisory Board. I've heard you speak many times before on other podcasts, and it's quite a privilege and honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you, James.
So Yara, there's a reason we have you on this show. Number one, you're a great guest. I had you on a previous show that I had. And second of all, what we want to talk about today is serious injuries and fatalities, but specifically in this case with the Hispanic workforce. And knowing that you are bilingual, you also have a podcast that you do of your own that talks to Spanish-speaking workers and gives them information. We thought we'd bring you on and we talk a little bit about, serious injuries and fatalities in the Hispanic workforce, but also some of the things that we can do to help get the information out to Spanish-speaking workers and how to integrate them into our overall safety program. So I'm going to let James lead off with a question. If James, you want to lead off with questions for Yara.
Well, our mission at Veriforce is to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. And in the latest data from the BLS, it seems like we're not doing a good job of that within the Hispanic workforce, the Latino community, or the Black community for that matter. Data I looked at, and you may have more specific numbers, has shown a rising increase year over year since maybe 2016. So whatever we're doing is not working. And having you on the show, I think it could help bring awareness to not only this issue of the disparity in worker fatalities, but also some key things that the safety profession as a whole could be changing or doing a little bit better to address this concern and make sure that we get all workers home safe from high hazard jobs.
Absolutely. And I appreciate, underlining that all workers, right? And that means if we need to go above and beyond and get out of our comfort zone to bring that Black worker safe to work, I need to do that. If that means that I need to take a couple more steps to bring that worker who is not proficient in English and communicates better in Spanish so I can bring him or her to home from work safe, I need to do that because I am responsible. The moment I hire that person, I'm responsible for their safety.
So let me ask you this. I think a lot of us as safety professionals, we think about ways that we can help people who aren't either native or not bilingual English speaking as well. And, we think about, well, we'll translate some of this material or we'll have another worker translate the material. But are there problems with that kind of thinking? Should we be doing more?
Yes. So one of the problems I personally seen in the past is that I've seen documents that are not accurate, are not properly translated. They probably just put them, on a digital, I don't know if we can say the name here, but just like on Google Translate,
Right.
and then print it out. We don't have anyone proofreading the document, making sure it actually makes sense for a Spanish speaking person, but somebody who doesn't even speak Spanish just copies, pastes on Google, prints a whole bunch of this paperwork and hand them off. Okay. And then
Yep.
you start reading the document and then there's misuse of words and doesn't make sense. And from that moment, I'm shutting down. I'm not taking that document serious.
Mhm.
you know?
What are some things that we can do to prevent that? And the first thing somebody's going to say is, well, uh, is it going to cost more money, right? I have an answer to, is it going to cost more money? But what is the right thing to do?
Yeah, hold the thought because we can discuss that regarding to injuries, right? And then it will
Yeah.
cost you way more, right?
Yes.
Right.
But more often than not, you probably are going to encounter workers in the workplace that are proficient in both languages, and that person can be key and can be a good helper to proofreading document, and not just proofreading, but also making sure it makes sense to the worker. Is it understandable to the worker? If a person from the floor reads this, is this person going to be safe? Is this person going to hone into this material and understand the hazards and act and change the behavior because of what they just read in that paper? And more often than not, just reading a document is not necessarily enough.
Well, I don't
Adults,
think OSHA would consider that training, even if you were giving that training, that document was in English and we were
yeah,
giving it to an English speaking worker.
yeah.
So that methodology, and I've seen that methodology in recent audits that I've done for some very large companies. Surprisingly, that the trend there is we're going to give you a document, you read the document, you sign the document, and one of the things I found that was sort of, I don't want to say alarming, but a significant gap, if you will, was that the training's in English. The materials are in English, but they're translated to the worker. But when we speak to the worker to see if those knowledge, skills, and abilities are present in the workplace, they have a lack of understanding of even some of the
Mhm.
basics when it comes to occupational safety and health. So how do we overcome that? We were talking about this earlier before we got on. This sort of a two-part question. We want to. OSHA wants us to train people in a language that they can comprehend and understand.
Mhm.
But do you think delegating that responsibility to a key worker, an employee, or just someone who happens to speak English is the right way to go?
I'm not saying fully delegating. I'm saying this person can be key in your process.
Okay.
But one thing that has been key to me in the field, it's being a two-way communication with the worker. Give them the opportunity to give you feedback. Okay, here is the document, here's this paper. Let's talk about it. And then show me on the machine, show me on the floor, show me in the field what is that we learned today.
Okay.
Are we really taking it? Because we can put stuff on paper and it can look beautiful, right? But is it really going to happen on the day to day? Is Billy Joe gonna put that to use tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock? Did he really understand the hazards and how that can change the way how he behaves on the floor and in the day to day? So that is what as safety professionals we must pursue. Is whatever it takes. Like I'm saying, if that takes that I go to this person and provide feedback multiple times on the floor, and maybe I stopped and then so let it be. Right? If when I'm walking the floor doing my rounds, I see this employee doing an unsafe behavior, I need to stop, and respectfully address them. Hey, I am concerned because I just noticed ABC hazard and noticed ABC behavior, and this is what we need to change. Can I count on you? Right?
Right.
I guess the part of the reason why we tend to just, hand out a paper is because we don't want to deal with the legwork, bringing people up, providing feedback, stopping a worker, right? And I said that because it's being for me, as a safety professional, it's been hard for me at the beginning of my career more so, but sometimes it's still hard, sometimes bringing people up is not fun. What it was for a person when I was in my early 30s. I'm not in my early 30s anymore, but early 30s or even late 20s. Me telling a worker in their 60s or the late 50s, sir, this is not okay. You need to stop. It's difficult.
I think that's a
but
challenge for all of us, Yara, in
right, I'm not
safety.
alone, right?
You're not alone. You're not alone. But I do think language barriers complicate this. And, I wish if I could go back in time and pay more attention in my high school Spanish classes and when I was in college, really develop a working mastery of the language. I think that would bridge some of the gaps that people in safety, from my background, have when working with Hispanic workers. And what I mean by that is, the reason I think sometimes you get just the piece of paper or you get just a student translating in class is because we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. The course may be translated in Spanish, but we were speaking earlier, there are a lot of different dialects of Spanish. And how do we overcome that? How do we deal with that to make sure the worker is receiving the knowledge, the skills, the abilities to go do their job and to do it safely? So many times I see we've checked the box that they've attended in class, or they've signed the job hazard analysis or the job safety analysis, and that document isn't in English, and none of the workers can read in this document, right? So we're checking the boxes, but we're not getting the knowledge to the field. So would you consider that question and give us some advice on how to handle that?
I'll go back to the same answer. Give them the opportunity for feedback. Treat them with respect. And ask them, okay, this is the paper, if we put in a paper, or this is the PowerPoint presentation. Let's talk about it. What's your takeaway? What are you going to do tomorrow when you go to do your duties? And then continue presence on the floor or the field. There has to be continuous communication and visibility of the safety professional. And there has to be a trusting relationship. I think you both will agree with me that it's a trusting relationship with the people, because you have to build that trust when a worker can come to you and tell you, hey, I have this concern with this procedure. I have this concern with this machine. I have this concern with this coworker that's doing this. And sometimes they tell you, please don't tell anyone. Please don't tell my supervisor. Please don't tell HR. I don't want to get in trouble. Right?
Yes.
And we have to honor that. And then you just go to the cameras and check the surveillance, and sure enough, you see this is what happened, and you have to honor that trust. So I would say give the opportunity to the worker to provide feedback and to make sure that they're clearly understanding the message that you're transferring, because that is clear communication, right? Making sure the other part is getting the message, not assuming that I communicated, and because I understood what donning and doffing is, the other part knows what donning and doffing is. They might not know. So not assuming that they, understand the lingo from safety or technical lingo, breaking it down. Or translates, because like what James is saying, I am Salvadorian, right? I am not Mexican. And I've been asked so many times, I've been asked if I am Italian, I've been asked if I'm Ukrainian, Russian, Filipino, different nationalities, right? And people tell me, but you don't sound Mexican. I'm like, maybe because I am not. Right? Stuff like that. Or they say, oh, where are you from? I'm like, from El Salvador. What part of Mexico is that? I'm like, it's a different country. It's Central America. Things like that, right?
Yeah.
So we assume
some people didn't pass their 4th grade geography class. I see.
Yeah.
Well, I had a physician telling me one time that I was going to South America because I was going to go and take my son back home in El Salvador. And she said, well, you're going to South America. I'm like, no, I'm going to Central America.
That's right.
Stuff like that. But, oh, well, we all make mistakes, right?
That's
we
right.
all, we don't have to. But anyways, regarding to the Spanish that we speak, like in the different countries, to James' point, we were talking to some neighbors here that we hang out now that's being so hot, and we hang out at their pool because they have a pool, we don't, right? And they live in Chile, and the wife speaks very good Spanish, but the husband doesn't. And he was telling us the other day that, Chilean Spanish is just so much different to the Spanish that they're used to here in California. And they were also saying how my husband's Spanish is so different to my Spanish because he is Mexican, right? He is for real Mexican. And so all this, particularities, like I remember when I met my husband and we were dating, I will say things that were to swear to him, and he will be like, and I'm like, what? What did I say? And at some point I said, this, and I will say things in English to just keep it. Oh, okay, that's what you meant. Okay, got it. Even from him and for me, who are both native Spanish speakers, there is differences, right? The way they speak Spanish in Mexico and we speak Spanish in Central America, South America can also have its variances. So the way I will address and tackle those language differences, again, give them the opportunity to tell you what is that they understood, because they might be words that they completely, throw them off.
And three-way communication.
Yes.
I'm telling you this, and I make sure that you
Yes.
understand that that's what the instructions are. These are what the hazards are, etc.
Yeah, and then verify that that is what it's happening in real life in the field.
Plan, do,
Right?
check, act.
Oh yeah.
And I will
Continuous
also
cycle.
say, yeah, right. It's a cycle. I will also say, I think you kind of alluded to this, but I'd like to bring it up. I think we bring it up almost every single time James and I talk so far on the program, is psychological safety. And you were talking about basically caring enough to really show that you care and say that you care. It's got to be really intimidating to not speak the language of your supervisors either well or at all, and then feel safe about your job enough to say something. And I think that's where things often fall apart, is that there's a fear that you'll get fired, or somebody will tell on you, or HR will know. And I think you gave a perfect answer. Is you basically, you take the time, right? You take the time like you would all workers go home safe, right? And so and I'm gonna wind this back to my original question about cost. And cost, time, productivity, quality, all those things. What it really comes down to is you're going to spend less time and money making sure you do the right thing for the worker up front, whether they're native speakers, bilingual speakers, not English speakers at all. So can you comment on psychological safety and how that's intimidating possibly for workers that don't speak the language?
Yes, I appreciate that, Linda. I appreciate it. So one thing that it's common, no matter what language you speak, is respect. Okay. I had an experience a few years ago where I was, well, won't give too much detail, but anyways, there was this couple of employees. They were both Black, and they will refuse to have anything to do with a manager in the company. I was not their direct manager. I was just a senior person to them. I was another manager, but that was not my department. I was safety, right? And they told me I don't want to have anything to do with, this guy. And if he's on this project, we were kind of working on a project, and if he's leading this project, I don't want to have anything to do. If you're leading the project, I'm in. So they didn't have a language barrier. They were from here. They were African American, and this guy was from here as well. That was a respect thing in there. And they're started telling me, how he is being dismissive to them and this and that. And he was their senior. And like you're saying, it is pretty intimidating when someone is senior to you and they're dismissive. They just don't pay attention to you. They treat you like they don't care, right? all these body languages we can notice even if we don't speak, the same language. So I believe respect is a common language for everyone. And aside of that, I believe that when you have a language barrier, when you have different languages, not just Spanish, you have to provide your workers the opportunity to feel safe, to feel that they can speak their mind and they have
Mhm.
the resources to do so.
Mhm.
It's not the same telling, someone on the floor, hey, can you go print these labels for me? Can you please give me today's order, today's schedule? Then sitting with someone, and telling how you're feeling about a situation. Several
Mhm.
times I got pulled by HR to interpret because, a worker said, I want to speak my mind, but I need somebody to fully understand how I mean, and I need to be able to express myself.
Mhm.
I can tell you how many times in my career I've done that. And sometimes many of those times, things that don't even have to do with safety, you
Mhm.
know? So that it's going to be key in a company, providing that opportunity, providing that resource. And the person that, is being that resource better be a person they can trust, better be a person that's professional enough, that's not going to be telling everyone their business, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's going to be, like I'm saying, a person they can trust in the future. So that will be my 2 cents there. Providing
Yeah.
the opportunities. What are we doing? Just like we have a policy for tardiness, right? Just like we have a policy like dress code.
Mhm.
What are we going to do to provide this opportunity? What's going to be our person or our resource or methodology um, to provide this person the opportunity to speak up should they have a concern about psychological safety, about someone being bullied or someone not respected them, or just simply something, that it's a concern to them. How about if something is happening at home and they,
Mhm.
they have a lot going on in their personal life and they show up to work and they just can't concentrate? How is this
Mhm.
person going to speak up? What's their research? So that will be, again, my advice there.
I actually I love that advice, and I'm thinking of like a safety management system and how you put all these programs and policies in place, and that um, there are certain certainly we have a very diverse workforce now, but there are certain
Mm-hmm.
areas of the country where um, the workforce may not be everybody like me or everybody like James or even everybody like yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so part of a safety management system, wow, what a great idea is to have a workflow and a policy for how we treat
Yep.
others and how we communicate with others. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's a real kind of maybe some companies have it, but I've never seen it in any of my workplace.
Oh,
And
I
that
have.
that to me is an innovation.
I
I,
have. I
I would
mean,
love to
I
see a policy like that.
I had positions where the job requirement has been you have to be a bilingual safety professional
Yeah.
because 90%, 80% of the construction workers are going to be
Right.
Spanish speakers and stuff. Yeah.
That was kind of my question is how do we recruit more bilingual um, individuals into the safety profession?
Yeah. The $1 million question. Yeah. I guess a lot of us are kind of afraid, I talk to several people and they say, no, I think that's a lot of schooling, it's a lot of things, and I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to do too much school and this and that, right? But I believe a lot of that is probably thinking that it's too hard and they can't do it and it's too much. I'll say, I don't know. I don't know how we can recruit more Spanish speaker bilingual, putting the word out there, inviting them to shadow what we do, because that's how I got into this.
Mhm.
I,
Good mentoring.
yes, I had a mentor, and this person took me under his wing, and he was very open to, yeah, I'll teach you what I do. I used to be like a quality assurance person. I was the quality assurance supervisor, and And then I discovered the safety world and was fascinated by it. And I'm glad I
Mhm.
did. I'm glad I switched. But there was a person who was willing to show me his day to day, and he was willing to let me volunteer and get exposed to what it's the safety does. And to me,
Mhm.
something that's being very touching and very moving, and one of the reasons why I believe that what I do is important and matters is especially this part with the Hispanic community, right? I not only serve the Hispanic community by any means, but I feel privileged. I feel honored that a worker tells me, "Can I have a word with you?" And or when a supervisor call me and say, "So and so says that he wants you with him at HR, otherwise he won't talk." I feel
Mhm.
honor. I feel honor with, workers have brought me food or little presents and things and notes because they say, "I appreciate what you did for me. I appreciate that you took the time and interpret and translated and all that." So that's very moving. I might get a bit emotional here. Um, it's been life changing, to be honest. I believe I made difference in the lives of different families and workers that had made it home safe for the reason or another. The workers that had probably in the past been afraid to speak and say, "No, I don't want to say anything. I've sold this condition with this machine, but I don't want to say anything." And sometimes I told them, "I'm going to take it up on me to take care of this issue. And you're going to help me." And when they've gone through that together, it's being, like I'm saying, very moving to me. So how do we get more Hispanic in the safety profession? I would love to see that. I would love to give you a magic recipe or formula. I don't have it. The only thing I can say is just speaking up. We
Mhm.
have some, safety chapters of the American Association of Safety Professionals. We have local chapters like in California, or we have associations. But yeah, there's not very many out there. Not a lot of us out there. We can definitely use more.
I think those of us that don't have a strong network, and I'll say, you are my network, um, and I know that I can call you as a safety professional. But I think some of us that don't have a strong network, how do we develop that? And I mean, I think one of it is mentoring. Another is to really kind of put ourselves out there and meet other people and make those connections. I know you can connect me with people should I
Yes.
need to connect with people, and
Yes.
vice versa, right? Same with James. And, you know, I guess, where do we find the resources if we're somebody who, all of a sudden I find myself on a job site and
Hmm.
I need help. I want to be that person for a non-English speaking worker. Um, what are your tips for me? Like, do I reach out to ASSP and try to find somebody? I mean, that people are going to know you now, so they can look you up on LinkedIn,
Yes.
and reach out to
Yes.
you. And I hear you say yes, so I know that that's the case. But how do we get those tools in our toolbox to move forward so that we are a good servant leader to um, other populations, non-English speaking populations, even ethnically diverse populations? How do we get those tools in our toolboxes?
So I will start definitely by the ASSP, the Hispanic chapter of it, Hispanic Association of Safety Professionals. There's a lot of resources there, a lot. They have people even internationally, and they have, I know for sure, we have colleagues in every single state in the United States. Luz Estela is currently in the United States, the head of that organization. She's in Pennsylvania, and she's
Mhm.
also an academics. She teaches in a university, I believe she has a doctorate. But I know people in California, a couple in Oregon, and I know for sure that we have at least one person um, per state from that association. So that is a good resource. LinkedIn is another good resource. You can just type in bilingual safety professional, Spanish, and you can find people that you can, try. I know it can be weird at first, right? Trying to request someone, but there is honestly people that will talk to you and say, yes, I'll be happy to help you. I'll be happy to connect with you and help you. And if they are not able to help you, they might be able to find someone. I would say reach out, utilize your human capital. Don't just feel like you're alone in this world. Don't just feel like okay, I don't have the resources. I guess I can't do anything. Reach out, because we are a community. I know we are people out there that are interested in bringing everyone safe, all workers, English speaking and non-English speaker workers, and we're happy to help. Yeah. And yeah, of course, they can reach out to me by all means.
So I will say this, right? I think reaching out is great. I also think that if we endeavor to be servant leaders, and if we endeavor to bring all workers home safe, that the first thing that we have to do when we approach a job site, a company, we really need to take stock in who our customers are, right? And as safety professionals, our customers are the workers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were in any company that sells widgets or other things, that you would work for your customers. So that thought has to go into every job. It has to go into every employee population. It has to go into, okay, what I'm looking at here is I need somebody to speak these 3 languages. And before the job starts, or before we start sending people out and training people, we have to reach out and find those resources, and find the training, and find the things that speak to people so that they know, like you said, that we care. Because if they don't know that we care, I think the barriers to having them feel psychologically safe, psychosocially safe, and actually, speak up about their conditions or ask questions, they're going to be too great for us to overcome, and we're going to experience some of the serious injuries and fatalities that we see in some of these statistics. And I know we started to talk about this, but I want to wind back to the statistics a little bit, because I know that you have some in front of you, and I wonder if you could read some of those for our viewers.
So James was saying at the beginning that the Hispanic population seems to be increasing rapidly, right, in the United States. So around 1990, we were 10.7 million Hispanic in the United States. By 2020, we were 29 million. That's almost 3 times what we were in the 90s. It is projected by 2030, we're going to be 35.6 million Hispanic in the Hispanic workers, not just Hispanic, we're more than that, right, across the board in the whole country, but this is the workforce. So we're projected to be pretty much 36 million in 7 more years. So, yeah. So companies, chances are that, a lot of companies that currently don't have Hispanic workers are probably going down to a couple of them, depending on where you're at. But then it's a good time to start thinking, how am I going to handle this, and incorporating it into your systems, right? Bringing your safety management systems, put it in writing. I have another piece of information here. So Hispanics are expected to account for 78% of the net workers between 2020 and 2030. So it is literally, the ethnicity that is leading the way. We're growing very rapidly. I know it's because we have a lot of kids. I don't know. Or we're moving here. A lot of us in here. I don't know. But that's kind of how it is. Why? I know James was asking as well. Why is that a lot of the minorities, in this case, he mentioned Hispanic in particular, where are they being killed and dying more often than other ethnicities? Well, we seem to be predominant in some high-risk industries. For example, farming, fishing, forestry. That industry has 43% of Hispanic workers. So that's about half of them.
Yeah.
Agriculture, if you go now here, if people pick the grape and not just the grape, but any fruit, any agricultural area, it's pretty much all Hispanics. You hardly ever see any other industry there. Fishing, if you go to Washington, you go to Alaska. I actually have families in my in-laws who go to Alaska during the fishing season and go in the boats. In the fish, yeah, and that's a very hazardous job too. When you go on the boat and you throw those nets and get crab and fish and all that. Then another industry, building and grounds. Building and grounds, cleaning and maintenance, 37.99% of Hispanics. Construction is 36%, and I'll say that also depends where you're at, because California it's more like 90, right?
I'm just going to say right there that I live in New England, okay? And I live in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine. That's my area, and I've been on job sites that are 100% Spanish speaking, 100%. 100%. And we're talking, I'm right up the road here, 10 miles away from me in Massachusetts. I was on a job site, and there was at least 100 workers. And I showed up on the job site. I do not speak Spanish. Actually, I speak French. But that's what I chose in high school. It's a bad choice. But I can speak and read French. I showed up on the job site. There was over 100 workers, and there was not a single person that spoke English.
How do you handle that?
I actually, they actually sent somebody out from the company that was bilingual. Because I showed up and they were just like, we don't know what to do with you. There was no communication. We actually, they stopped our work. We were doing some training. They stopped our work, and we waited for somebody to come out that could communicate between, when I worked for the crane company at the time, between the crane operator and was that the sun side? Yeah. And I mean, it was to me. Well, like. Yeah. And to me, that was not safety. And they brought somebody out that could translate bilingual. But it was really eye-opening for me because I've never had that happen before. And I never want to happen again. I want to show up on a job site and have resources available.
Yeah, so that's to go in the plan. A lot of workers go to different states for projects. So I want to say in construction, the vast majority are going to be, at least here in California, are going to be Hispanics. So, and I will be that person that you're talking about, the one that, the company says, hey, send her. And I'd be in jobs that have to be installed by OSHA and whatnot. I remember there was one. It was a fire cleanup because we have fires in California, right? It's not a secret. So there was asbestos. So there was the union has worker training for fire cleanup, but in this particular case, there was also asbestos. So per the regulations, they also require on top of asbestos worker training, 32 hours. So they were not aware of that, and there was some miscommunication. They had to stop their work, and I had to, go and do that for 4 days.
Well, I work in construction manufacturing across a lot of different industries, but my roots are in the oil and gas industry. And I want to share this with you because I found it alarming from a statistics standpoint, but we see the same thing as far as an ever-increasing Latino and Hispanic workforce in the oil and gas industry. And based on the numbers you just gave us, that's going to continue to grow, right? So, based on the BLS data from 2020, the highest fatality rates were in these states: Wyoming, 13 per 100,000 workers. Alaska, 10.7 per 100,000 workers. South Dakota, 7.8. North Dakota, 7.4. West Virginia, 6.6. Every one of those states is an energy state. Every one of them.
And some of those are also agricultural. Where Alaska fishing,
Right.
and South Dakota a little agriculture, Wyoming too. Yeah.
So, you know, I think here's another interesting statistic came from the AFL-CIO. The Latino fatality rate increased again to 4.5 per 100,000 workers in 2020, 32% greater than the national average. That marks a 15% increase over the past decade.
Yeah.
The number of Latino worker deaths in 2020 was similar to the previous year, 1,072 deaths in 2020 compared to 1,088 in 2019. Of those who died in 2020, 65% were immigrants. So obviously we're not doing the work. We're not doing enough to address this issue, and I think it's good to have conversations. You know, you spoke about having conversations to gain trust, to gain insight, to verify that people have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do their job, but also for us to sort of blend the culture, if you will, for me to better understand as a safety professional, when we're planning the work, we're designing the work, that we're getting input from everyone that's involved in that task, to break down barriers that obviously exist. The disproportionate numbers here are reflective
Evident.
of a greater problem. It's evident to everyone that will look and listen, right? That we do have a greater problem. And if we continue to do the same while we increase the number of workers, we're just going to continue to see an increase in fatalities, and 32% is going to become 42%, it's going to become 50%. So, you know, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with all of us on techniques that we can use, and having a frank discussion. Let's get down to it, because I'm passionate about this now. I want everyone to come home safe. No one goes to work to die. No one immigrates from another country to come here and die on the job. That was not their intention when they left their homeland. So we're not doing enough. And I love talking to you because you get me fired up. You make me want to do more, you know, and thank you for sharing with us resources where we can learn how to do more.
So, Yara, I know we're kind of running out of time here. I just want to thank you for coming on the Risk Matrix. Before we let you go, though, can you just give a plug for your podcast here at the end? Because I think it's an invaluable resource. Yara is an invaluable resource. Can you tell us just quickly where we can find your podcast, or where Hispanic workers, Spanish-speaking workers can find your podcast and learn more about safety?
Sure. I appreciate the opportunity as well. Appreciate you guys. Before I share about the podcast, appreciate Veriforce and the space, you know, the opportunity to voice my concerns about our community. Like I said, it's a very sensitive topic to me, because I've been the person who gets called when somebody has a fatality. The most recent one was last Christmas Eve morning. There was a fatality on December 24th. A worker fell from a roof and died.
I'm working
And then
one right now, Hispanic worker fatality.
yeah, and it's I being the person, like I'm saying, who gets called, another worker, same December, 4 fingers amputation, December, you know, so not a fun thing to do when those things happen. So I do appreciate companies like Veriforce and other companies that truly care and have a concern to bring in everyone safe, English or non-English speaker. So where and how can you find my podcast? Is a podcast in Spanish. I'm actually pioneering this, as being the first podcast in America in Spanish, full in Spanish. My concept is a bit different. It's most of the time just me talking. I have a few guests, and my last guest was someone in Argentina who is a safety professional in Argentina. Yeah. So how it's viewed, you know, over there in South America. But for the most part, it's education about, it can be, you know, bloodborne pathogens, electrical safety. Right now, we are going down the list of the six hazards, the six type of hazards in the classification that OSHA outlines: the physical hazards, safety hazards, psychological hazards, and all those. We're going down the list, biological hazards and such. So the name of the podcast is in Spanish, is Seguridad en Mente, which means safety in mind. I am in all the platforms: Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. And I have quite a few episodes there. You can hear them all. I'd be happy to have you subscribe, and if you can share it with someone who may benefit from it. You may share it with a worker who may want to learn about safety on the job or at home. I'll be happy to have you as a subscriber.
Awesome. Yara, thank you so much for coming on. And, again, shout out to Veriforce for getting us all together and putting our minds together. And I will say this: if this episode of the Risk Matrix, as a safety professional, stressed you out because you're not doing enough, sorry, safety is not for people who don't like to be stressed, because caring doesn't stop when we go to sleep at night. So thanks for listening to the Risk Matrix. If you like what we're doing, certainly follow us and listen to the other episodes. Follow James, follow Yara, follow myself on LinkedIn, and subscribe. And certainly, if you have any questions, comments, we do respond to those. We'll have Yara keeping a lookout for those comments as well. Go ahead and make the comments on the YouTube channel. And again, this has been Yara Carrillo. Thank you so much. James Junkin, Risk Matrix, Roll Tide.
Oh, Risk Matrix, Roll Tide.
And Dr. Martin. Risk Matrix.
We're in the
and
Matrix.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.